Perfect. So, first slide,
I can see your
Rachel
screen.
already kind of started to discuss. I have spent majority of even from college on in the field of pediatrics. I have been in outpatient. I've been in rehab, outpatient peds. I've been in inpatient peds. I've done school based. And early intervention. So, have definitely spent my fair share of time in pediatrics. Um, just some like professional interests for me. A big one for me is finding strategies for kiddos and then watching them have that classroom carryover or even just the at home carryover. But definitely, I think some of the school districts can benefit from some of that input from a sensory or an emotional regulation standpoint. Um, just some play-based strategies for autism and other social emotional disorders, just kind of letting the child go about their therapy session and me trying to make it fun and incorporate my strategies with their lead. And then just from kind of a bigger perspective, more so in early intervention, just some of that teaming for some of those more tougher clients, the neurological disorders and things like that, where you have to work in a bigger team to pretty much provide the treatment for the kids. Couple just fun facts about me. I was a crazy cat lady until about 3 months ago, and I decided to get a puppy, which is why I'm currently at the library right now. My house is a zoo, um, so it has been crazy. Um, Definitely kind of a sports girl. I coach a team right now of middle school girls for softball, which um, the upcoming zones of regulation presentation has definitely been helpful for. Um, and then lastly, I just love getting people together for whatever event there is, holidays, games, things like that. All right. So the zones of regulation. Um, this is kind of your basic chart that describes the four zones. Obviously, there are way more emotions than what are pictured, but just for you guys to kind of get an idea of which emotions go into which zones. I will break it down further after this slide, but here's kind of the overall picture. So, most of us, we definitely enter into at least three of these zones every day, sometimes four. I know for us adults, the blue zone is definitely one that's pretty common, at least for me. Just feeling tired at sometimes, but we want to aim for the green zone as much as possible for ourselves and for our kids. So same thing for our kids. We really want them to aim for the green zone. Um, it is okay to be in any zone. That's one thing I really, really, um, strive to to let kids know is that it's okay. We're able to feel these emotions, but just um, how can we cope with them? How can we get our bodies back in the green zone where we're at a more regulated state? So, definitely okay to be in any zone at any time. Obviously, I think we want the emotion to match the scenario. But that kind of brings me to my second point that I always mention is that emotions are very subjective. So, what I may feel in a specific circumstance isn't what anyone else is going to feel. So, everyone's unique in their feelings. And so, I think it's really important to validate those feelings for all of our kiddos. So, this is the curriculum is for 4 years and older, technically, but I do feel like it can be utilized as young as 2 to 3 as far as starting to just discuss and educate the younger kiddos on emotions. So definitely can start as early as 2, especially with kiddos starting to show more of those emotions and the need for independence. Um, the curriculum was developed for kids with neurobiological and or mental health disorders, such as autism, ADHD, ODD, conduct disorders, anxiety disorders, trauma, or any other of the social emotional disorders. So the chart that you guys are looking at is one that I usually give to parents. It can sometimes be a little bit too much visually for some of our kids. So it is one that might be like stuck on the fridge, and just as a reminder for parents, as a discussion topic, but sometimes it is a little bit too visually overwhelming, especially for our little ones. I also think that prior to learning the zones of regulation, it really is nice to have for the kids to have somewhat of a little bit of an understanding about kind of how fast their body's running, like really tuning into, am I running slow or low? Am I running just right? Or am I running fast? And so prompting those questions helps us decide what zone we're in as well. All right, so just kind of getting into each of the zones. So we have our blue zone. All of the zones have a roadway sign. The other three are our stoplight. This one is our rest area sign. And in this zone, the more commonly used terms: sad, bored, tired, sick. But basically, it's just us. It's when our bodies are moving slowly. And so this is obviously expected when we are maybe going to sleep at night or waking up in the morning. I know a lot of adults and kids hit that kind of afternoon rest area. But in this zone, in order to return to the green zone, which is ideally what we want, especially if it's in the middle of the day, is more alerting activities. And these may be anything from like movement opportunities, like outside playground activities, obstacle courses, yoga, or any kind of activity which requires us to use our body in some sort of force. Other ideas would be just anything unique to the kiddo that makes them happy, such as thinking of their favorite happy place, silly jokes, using the favorite toys, using a favorite video, things like that. And then I really think that the oral sensory strategies are often alerting. And those are things like drinking ice cold water out of a straw, chewing candy, sour candy, mint candy, thick liquids through a straw, anything frozen. So those are always good options for transitioning us into our green zone and becoming more alert. All right, so like I said, the red, yellow, and green, our stoplight is kind of how you can let kids know, or how they can visualize the red, yellow, and green. So our green is the go zone. This is when we're happy and focused. We can also be calm. We can be proud. And I think that kids can maintain this level of alertness by doing things that obviously make them feel calm, focused, and ready to learn. Sometimes there is a little bit of, I feel like, blurry lines between the green zone and the yellow zone when we think about happy, because a lot of times happy turns really quickly into excited, especially for kids at a younger age. So just remembering that in the green zone, we also have to be ready to learn and focused. So obviously, some strategies for green zone could include like journaling, yoga, using a fidget toy, any sort of like tactile sensory play. So play with our hands, even things like cooking or baking with an adult, watching a show, and once again, back to that kind of oral sensory input, using drinks, crunchy snacks, chewy snacks, things like that. So the yellow zone is This is our slow zone. So in the yellow zone, we're starting to build up higher energy levels. This is one where I feel like we often see both more like positive emotions and negative emotions arise. So we can be things like excited or silly, but also those more negative emotions, as we would call them, like worried, frustrated. Um, this one's always fun to talk about with kids when thinking about the stoplight, because a lot of times when I ask kids like, what happens when your mom or your dad see a yellow light, and a lot of kids want to tell me they speed up. I'm like, okay, I mean, same sometimes, right? But this really is our time to slow down and try and rejoin and get back to the green zone. Um, in this zone, I do tend to talk a little bit more about what our body feels like, just to see if kids can feel that like heightened sense. See if they're more aware that maybe their heart is racing a little bit, or maybe they might start to get hot, um, or maybe their body is just moving a little bit quicker, or maybe they're talking just a little bit louder. So really like focusing in on some of those, body awareness strategies and words. Um, I would say at this point, like I said, we can be in the yellow zone for a little bit of time, but our goal is always to get back down to that green zone. So just some strategies would be taking a break from the activity, taking some deep breaths, counting to 5 or 10, playing with maybe like a visual fidget, something that kind of takes their mind off what they're doing. Um, Maybe turning the lights off or dimming the lights, using like that proprioceptive input. So like giving a tight hug, giving our body a squish, those sorts of things. Size of the problem is a really good one to use here, which we will get into in a little bit. And then something like swinging or rocking back and forth would be good. This is often the zone that I feel like is kind of missed in a lot of cases, where families will say, well, my kid was just, they were really, really good. They were calm, they were focused. And then all of a sudden they skipped this yellow zone and went straight to the red zone. That's usually typically not the case. I mean, it does happen, but usually there are like, if you pay really close attention, some little things that you might notice as the child is kind of revving up, or there could have been a lot more moments of yellow zone throughout the day that kind of build and build and build. So when we hit that one extra thing, we move from green to red really, really quickly. All right, so red zone is obviously our stop zone. Once again, there are some more like positively related emotions, such as just being very overjoyed or very elated. But there are a lot of more negatively related emotions: panicked, angry, terrified, mad, all of those in the red zone. Um, this is typically when kids just become very out of control. And during this zone specifically, it's really hard to reason with a kiddo, as I'm sure we're all aware. So you usually see a lot more increased physical responses in this one: screaming, yelling, jumping around, stomping, throwing things, all of those things. We also seem to lose quite a bit of safety or body awareness in the red zone. Um, so that is also kind of a bigger picture concern. So for this zone, we really, really want to act fast. And we're probably going to drop back down to yellow zone and then back down into green zone. So it's probably not going to be just red to green. We're probably going to have to work through all of those emotions. So some common tools that would be recommended for this would definitely be like taking a break. I know I've had some foster families kind of use the word time in. So sitting down with your child, maybe dimming the lights, going to like a calming space in your house, definitely reducing that auditory input, so things that they're hearing, and then that visual input as well, reducing that. So we don't want the TV blasting while we're in this big red zone. We want to definitely use that time to reduce all extra input that we possibly can. Um, so things like less verbal words from parents, um, calm lighting, taking deep breaths, even things like a warm bath. So many of our kiddos love water, so sometimes a warm bath is enough to reset them. I think this zone, it's really important to make sure we're not, kind of labeling this indirectly or directly as like our bad zone, because we all feel red zone emotions. And like I said, it's really just more important that we can make it dip back down to the green zone, and that we can recover and everybody can learn, parents and children, how we can help co-regulate, help our kids regulate to get them back to that green zone. All right, just some extra ideas to teach these, starting from more of like 2.5, 2s to 4s. They're obviously not typically reading yet, so we have to be a little bit more creative with some of these concepts. So some helpful things, just starting to label emotions, even when you're feeling the emotions, just labeling them out loud, using emotions through pretend play, using a stoplight cue, telling them that their body may be running just right or slow or fast, things just very verbally announcing things to start to get them to understand. I also think kids at this age might respond better to using some of the colors instead of using the exact emotion that they feel. So a kiddo might say, I'm red, instead of I'm mad or I'm angry or frustrated. And that's okay too. That just means we're starting to understand. Visuals for this age group, showing them, some of the emotion faces, those sorts of things. Books, great. The more like as we're entering kindergarten, first grade, and the more ability to be able to read or follow along to a game or something like that. I feel like games are really, really good way to target. I use anything with the 4 colors. So Uno is great, Twister is great, Pop the Pig is great. Anything that has those 4 colors works wonders, because you can ask them an emotion in that. You can ask them to describe a time that they felt mad or sad or happy, things like that. They also might respond positively at this age to like coloring the emotion faces or identifying the pictures of emotions, and then just continued discussion about emotions for sure. And then as we get kind of a little bit older into elementary school, I do find that there are a lot of good books out there for this age group, especially if we're able to read. There is some expansion to the zones curriculum, which we'll talk about, and things like identifying our triggers, inner critic versus inner coach, identifying the size of the problem, and being flexible. So all those are kind of higher level thinking. Like I said, those are in some next slides. And then last, I feel like there are so many good YouTube videos. I think any like Disney clips you pull up, either you can talk about the emotion that they're feeling, you can talk about if there's a problem. And so kids, I found, learned very good with watching some of those videos that they're already kind of familiar with. So talking more tools and toolboxes. So it's kind of hard, I've given like some examples of different things that you can use, but every kid is unique. So nothing's going to work exactly the same with one kiddo as it does with the other. But I think the important things to remember is that when we are in a yellow or red zone, we want our strategies and our toolbox activities to be calming. When we're in the blue zone, we want them to be more alerting. And I think that it's always really nice to provide options. So Down at the bottom, there's an example of like a toolbox for a kid. This is quite a few options. For some kids, it might be better to reduce it to 2 or 3 options, but kids love to be in control, and so providing them with options of what they want to do. And that also helps you kind of see what if there's a pattern of things that they tend to go for more. Are there better regulation strategies? Can you help them pick maybe the best one in the situation? Let's see here. Just another option for a toolbox or a visual for a kid. There are so many different options for this, but essentially just providing those visuals so that when everything else around them is just chaotic, that they don't have to verbalize any words, that we can use pictures, we can use pointing to pictures, we can have a previously already idea to help them regulate and understand what zone they're in. All right, so this size of the problem is, like I said, more of a later on kind of idea, elementary age probably typically, but after we kind of understand like our basic emotions. And size of the problem can be it can be simplified a little bit. So the one on the screen is 1 through 5, but it can also be utilized as more of a 1 through 3, and we can look at it as speed bump, hill, and mountain. And I think any kid that's been in a car can relate to speed bump, hill, and mountain and have a picture of what that looks like in their brain, and so therefore that makes tons of sense. Once again, these problems that we have are subjective, and so there could be, well, I think this is more of a medium problem. Well, I think this is more of a big problem. So when that happens, I kind of turn to these more factual related things. So these are kind of determined by the amount of time it takes to solve the problem. Who do you need to solve the problem? Can I do it myself, or do I need other people to solve the problem? And how many people are involved in this problem? And so when you look at the tiny problem or the small problems, you're looking at, for kids, I can solve this myself. This is a tiny problem. This is a speed bump. I don't need anybody's help. I can do this myself. So an example would be like a tiny problem, like dropping my pencil. Okay, I don't need to overreact. I can just bend down and pick it up. Little problem, I think this is a big one for a lot of our kids, is that my schedule changed. And that is hard. It is very hard, but it's okay. And just knowing that that's my problem, I don't have to overreact to something like that. Medium problem is where we start to need an adult's involvement, somebody's help to solve the problem. So maybe it's like a kid getting bullied at school, where they need to ask an adult's help to solve the problem. And for a medium problem, it doesn't just involve the person themselves. It typically involves another person, maybe a couple people. And like I said, we need an adult's help. And sometimes this problem isn't a simple fix. It's not 5 minutes like some of the smaller problems. This might be a little bit more ongoing. The bigger problems, or even the huge problems, obviously, these are things that not only take an adult, but maybe take more of a specialized adult, like somebody that works for, like a police, fire, doctor, things like that. So like a big problem example is like an injury, like I broke my arm. We obviously, need further steps. This is a much longer problem that lasts weeks. And sometimes, but typically more people are involved. Obviously, my parents are upset. I have to get a nurse, a doctor, all those things. And then our huge problems are those like emergency level problems. They're the ones like tornado, natural disaster, house fire, those sorts of things. And so why this is nice to explain to a kiddo is because a lot of times they think their problems are the huge problems, and realistically a lot of us have maybe never been through a huge problem or go through very, very limited amount of huge problems in our lifetime. So um, it shouldn't be, our reaction shouldn't be the level of a huge problem if it really is just more of a little or medium problem. And so oftentimes just discussing, does my reaction match the size of the problem, is really helpful to start to talk about the conflict and the problem in general. So I have a little video to share. Here we go. All right. So obviously an example of a little bit of an overreaction to a small problem. So things like that are videos that I like to use when working with kids, because once again, I feel like, everyone's seen, not everyone, but a lot of us have seen Finding Nemo. And so using something that they're already maybe familiar with to talk about that is tends to be very helpful. Okay, so next, kind of higher level thinking.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
it's Rachel. I was going to say, is there any way you can replay that video? It just
Yeah.
stayed on your slide and we didn't see the video.
No. Okay. Um, let's see. Can you see it now?
It's still showing like the zones curriculum, the inner critic.
Okay, give me just 1 second. I think I might have to share in a different way.
Okay.
Entire screen. Oh no. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah. With Nemo?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it has sound, but I see Nemo.
I don't know if it's gonna work.
We know Nemo. We know he's
Okay.
panicking.
Well, so yes, so dad is absolutely panicking. He gets stuck in the little plant, and dad's like panicking, I can't take you to school. Anyways, I can share the link to it, but basically that using some of those videos to relate to just are really, really helpful for some of these kids. Okay, so inner critic versus inner coach. Obviously, like, our inner critic is the voice inside of our head that's saying you can't do it, you are not good enough, you're too tired, don't do it. Inner coach is obviously on the opposite end, like, I can do this. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to ask for help. I will get through this. And so, um, just a in addition to the zones of regulation is that they want kids to understand that sometimes some of our problems and some of our emotions are based on this idea of that like negative self-talk, that inner critic versus the inner coach. And when we find more of our inner coach, then we can find more of our green spot. So there are some really good activities with this as well. But I think just explaining this, having kids write down some of the things that maybe their inner critic have said at times or their inner coach has said at times helps kind of bridge that gap. Like, hey, I really do need to use my inner coach. And I think this is one when I am teaching this lesson, I'm often, like very like realistic with myself. And I think, everyone could use a little bit inner coach at times. So it's a really good one to relate to kids and to even talk to them about some of the times where maybe you've been inner critic versus inner coach and how that's impacted your emotions and your reactions. So triggers is another good one where I feel like when I teach it, I'm like, man, I remember this trigger made me feel this way. So just another one that kind of hits home as an adult even. So our triggers are our thoughts, things, actions that move kids out of the green zone and typically towards the yellow zone and eventually towards the red zone. And this is another time where I feel like parents will say, well, they went from 0 to 100 really quick. But a lot of times, if we are identifying our kids' triggers, a lot of times there is that small trigger buildup where, this happened, this little tiny thing happened, and then we were okay. We were back to green zone, but then this little thing happened. We went back to green zone. Okay, something bigger may have happened. And this could be, things as simple as I don't like the smell of that, or that noise bothers me, or someone gave me a weird look, or any of those little things. They're building up, they're building up, they're building up. And then a lot of times that's where that cup overflow happens. So I think it's important, to a lot of times I'll just give this handout to parents even and say, can you identify some of the things that you feel like triggers your child? Because when we're aware of those things and we see them happening, I think we spend a lot more time um, trying to keep our kiddo in the green zone. Versus if we're unaware, then we don't even know that they're building and they're building and they're building in a lot of times. So on the right is another handout. It's just stop, opt, and go. So it's just once again um, that light, um, but just stopping where you are, thinking about the trigger, and then going from there. What could I do? What are my even if it's like a more of a negative thought, like I could yell at this person back or whatever, like having them write out all of these things and then obviously identifying more of the better options just really helps kids process this information. All right. And then Superflex is kind of an add-on to the zones curriculum. I like it for our even older. Um, so thinking more like second-ish plus. The books do take a little bit of time to read, but they have some really cool characters, and I feel like kids can really identify to the superhero. But the overall information is the superhero is super flexible and defeats all these social town citizens that um, their brains are ruled by all of these other characters. And you can see a few of the characters here. just like rock brain, getting stuck on an idea, glassman, makes you have huge upset reactions. Mean Gene gets people to act mean and bossy. Brain eater, which I have a problem with often, is distraction. And so there are several of these books, and they do a really good job of some character development in them, but just also some of the curriculum stuff. It's like make your own superhero and pick your 3 top unthinkables that tend to that resonate with you. So each book does take about, like I said, it's like 10 to 15 minutes to read. So I feel like you do have to have a little bit longer of attention span and a little bit more um, older processing skills. But I think there's a lot of creativity in these books for our maybe more imaginative learners. All right, so now that we know this information, I know it's important to know how we get access to some of these things. The Zones of Regulation website has tons of free information. They have stuff for home, they have stuff for school. They just have a bunch. So if you go to resources under their website, they have so much stuff. I love the visuals. All these visuals are pulled directly from their website. So just a ton of good information. They also have training courses for anyone interested in doing a training directly through them. There's also, as I was doing this presentation, I found out that there are now interactive mobile apps, which is so cool. I love it. Those are for purchase. I think the one was like $5.99, the other one was $9.99, but one of them was like an emotions tracker app for parents as well. So like, oh, you really want to know, maybe my kid really struggles at this time of the day. I wonder why. Or I just can't really figure out what's triggering my kid at this specific time, or on this specific day. So there's tracking apps. There's one that's a simulated environment, which I thought would be so cool for some of our older kiddos. And it looks like a video game. And then you learn about all the emotions through it. So that I thought was really cool, really fun. You guys have heard of Teachers Pay Teachers? It's a website. They have stuff that's free, but then they also have stuff for purchase. Those are more like handouts. I have found some good social stories on there as well, that talk about the different emotions and the different zones and things. There's some social stories regarding like how is our engine running, or how is our body running. So that's another really good website that I tend to use. YouTube for all of the videos. I think even just looking up some of the clips from whatever your kid is most interested in, whether it's Disney or a specific show, you can always find clips. They do have some more like educational zone type of videos for some older kids as well. Books is another big one, obviously. If you do go to the Zones of Regulation website and you go to resources and you drop down for the home, it has like lists and lists and lists of books. And it even breaks them down into which zone each book is talking about. So tons of books on their website to take a look at. And then I would say, like, if there are continued challenges with social emotional regulation, you also may want to consider an occupational therapy referral for further help and assistance. All righty. I am all done. So I'm going to exit out of my slideshow so I can see everybody for questions.
Okay, I am gonna stop our recording, and that way, you guys might just feel more comfortable, um,